Do you ever feel stretched thin as a parent? Well, I know I definitely do. Today's episode might just be your lifeline. We are sitting down with Lauren Chaitoff, founder of Yogi Beans, to explore how yoga and mindfulness can really transform your family dynamic. So, from quick stress relievers for kids to practical tips for keeping your cool, Lauren's insights could be key to unlocking a more balanced family life. So, check it out now. Hey parents, welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. Do you want to raise your kids better and have a stronger marriage? Are you up late at night researching marriage and parenting tools and self-care tips? Do you start each day hoping for deeper connections and less chaos, but it ends with family arguments and going 12 different directions again? My name's Kendra, wife, mom, therapist, and growth enthusiast. It wasn't until I discovered how to fulfill my unmet needs that I was finally able to show up as my best self as a spouse and parent. I realized that by meeting my needs, I could more fully meet the needs of my family with more energy and less resentment. In this podcast, I teach parents skills like boundary setting, prioritizing personal needs, communication, and claiming ownership. Just like my clients, you'll be shocked by the improvement in your marriage, parenting, and personal life when you focus on fulfilling your important unmet needs. Ready to prioritize yourself so you can quit mentally throat punching people? Then grab those earbuds and head outside, and let's walk and talk. Welcome back to Fulfillment Therapy. Today we have a special guest with us today. Her name is Lauren Chaitoff, and she is the brains behind Yogi Beans. I love that name, by the way. A company that's all about bringing yoga and wellness to kids. So she's not just the founder, but she's also an author and leader in the world of children's yoga. So with Yogi Beans, she helps kids and parents learn some amazing tricks for staying healthy and happy both in body and mind. And she wrote this amazing book, 108 Awesome Yoga Poses for Kids. So that is quite the background. I'm so excited to hear from you today and have you on the show. So thank you so much for coming.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, Kendra. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself before we jump.
Yes, sure. So, well, my background is in theater. I started out, I was an actress, in my 20s. And then upon moving back to New York, like 20 years ago, I decided that I no longer wanted to act. And I was kind of like, what am I going to do with one of those like quarter life crises? What am I going to do with my life? And at the time I was teaching Pilates, so I was in the fitness and wellness world. And I really felt fulfillment from that. And I decided I'm going to get my yoga certification. And then, always tell the same story. Upon getting my certification, I was told by my teachers, Lauren, good cueing, the poses, you do like the little teaching practicum. And they said to me, however, you do have a lot of energy. And if you're going to go teach yoga, you might want to tone it down a bit. And I thought to myself, well, to me, yoga is about truth and authenticity, which it is. And I was like, this is me. I do have a lot of energy. I'm loud. I have big facial expressions, and I should maybe channel all this energy and use it to work with children and share yoga with them, because I came to yoga like many people later in college. So not that late, but I wasn't a child. And I was a very anxious child, still an anxious adult, which is why I practice. And I thought, wow, if I can impart some of these practices and some of the things that have helped me so much as a young adult now, like a midlife adult, but like so many things that have helped me, wouldn't that be amazing? So that was kind of where the seed was planted, and then it sprouted into Yogi Beans.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And I love that you just utilized your own strengths and you didn't change for other people, but you're like, okay, how can I use my strengths in a way to help others? And kids is a great place to have energy. So I think that is a great way to combine those things together.
Yeah, for anyone listening, it's important to take like any sort of criticism. And I think I learned this during my like acting days, right? You take the criticism and you make it constructive. So that's kind of what I did.
Yeah, that is amazing. Well, I'm excited to hear more about that. But so where is it that you live, by the way?
So I am based in Long Island. I started Yogi Beans when I was living in New York City. So I'd say maybe like 80% of our business is all throughout New York City. So Manhattan, Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, Staten Island. And then since I moved out to Long Island, 20%, we have a smaller contingency of teachers out here, and we do classes here, a few classes in New Jersey, a few classes in Westchester. So kind of like tri-state area.
Okay, wonderful. So then my audience is just parents looking to find greater fulfillment, increase their mental health and wellness in lots of ways. So that can be yoga, and you mentioned, for example, that you're an anxious person. A lot of my listeners are. So I want to pick your brain, if that's all right, about different things that we can do to improve our overall life of fulfillment and our wellness. Do you mind if I dive in and ask you a few questions?
Oh, please. Yeah. I'm a parent too. So I should mention that too. I have two daughters. They are 8 and 11. So I understand it from all angles.
I actually have an 8 and 11-year-old as well. And I have an almost 14-year-old and a 17-year-old.
Oh, wow. Okay. So yes, that's a lot.
I think. Yeah. Okay. So my first question for you is, do you have any quick yoga tricks parents can teach their kids to help them calm down when they're feeling stressed?
Yes. So the one thing I tell children that take our class all the time, I say, if there's one thing you can take away from this experience, it's not your down dog, it's not your tree pose, it's how you breathe can change how you feel. So I think if that is something that we can plant that seed early on, that is so huge because our breath is really the key to regulation. So I always say in those heightened moments, we do something called center breathing. So this can work well, I'd say, for maybe like a younger child or an older child. It depends. Everyone knows their child best. But I ask the child, can I place my hand on your heart? And then ask them, will you place my hand on my heart? So there's that contact and touch. And then it's just holding eye contact, a gentle gaze, and taking some deep breaths together. I often find when children are in like heightened emotion, right? All of us, no one wants to be told, calm down, just breathe. So when you do it together, first of all, it makes it a little more fun. It brings that element of connection. And for really young kids, you want to make the breath tactile. You want to make it something they can feel, right? Not just like take a deep breath, but do you feel, your grown up breathing with you? Can you feel my chest rise and fall? Or perhaps you're taking a stuffed animal and you're placing it on the child's belly and you're saying, we're going to rock this stuffed animal to sleep and we're going to take 10 deep breaths and rock it 10 times. So you kind of make it a little bit of a game. You have to do that with kids. So I think using the breath is really the paramount to everything.
Oh, and really good idea. I had never really thought about that before. Doing it together totally makes sense. But even just with a toy, stuffed animal, like, of course, they'd be more on board with that. And that helps as parents with like all ages. Because, teenagers might be a little different. They might not have their stuffed animal, but you can totally do the other one. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And so we all know that parenting can be a little bit crazy, and depending on the ages. But what are some easy ways that parents can sneak in a bit of mindfulness into their day to stay patient and grounded?
Yes, it's such a good question. It's such a hard question, right? Because as parents, we can tell you what to do, and the reality is, are you going to do right? Are we going to do it though? So I always, when broached with this kind of question or topic, I like to ask people to think about: are you a nightingale or a lark? Are you a morning person or an evening person? Because I think certain people's like circadian rhythms, it just depends on, like, some people are like, I can't get up early, or I'm more creative at night and I work best at night. So depending on which you are, I say you need to carve out some either in the beginning of the day or the end of the day time for yourself that is almost ritualistic. That time cannot be interrupted. So it might be before everyone gets up. I'm that type of person, and I know that's not for everyone, but I can set my alarm a few minutes before everyone rises and like have that moment to ground myself, to move my body. Some people prefer, I'd rather do it at 12 o'clock at night when everyone's asleep and the house is quiet. Whatever works for you, I think making that time such a priority, like nothing can break that time. It needs to be really ritualistic. That has helped me because it helps tether me, to the day. So I find that is a great way to really nurture yourself and provide a little bit of self-care. And it doesn't have to be a long time, right? It could be 10 minutes, just something where you're carving out that time either in the morning or before you go to sleep at night, which are really two important parts of our day when we rise and when we go to sleep for yourself.
Yeah. And do you recommend it something like a guided meditation? It's just like a few yoga poses, like
Yes, I think I would say not on a screen unless you're using it for like audio or something. You definitely wouldn't want a screen. I think that depends on what works for you. Some people, it's going to be a guided meditation, like an audio, guiding them through breath or maybe visualization. For other people, like I'm really kinesiatic. For other people, it might be moving their body in the morning. It could be if you're a runner going for a 20-minute run in the morning. I'm not a runner, but like it could be going for a run in the morning. Or if it's at night, maybe it's some gentle yin yoga if the body is the way that you kind of, connect. Other people, it could be maybe playing the piano. I think whatever it is that feeds your soul and carving, it might be journaling for some people. But whatever it is, I don't think there's like one right answer. No screens. I guess that's the right answer. No screens. But other than that, I think it can be anything that like makes you feel alive.
yeah. I love that. That's so beautiful. And I'm all about that too. Like, what makes you feel alive and what fills your soul and fuels it, really, and in different ways, whether that's, you said music, whether that's running, whether that's a guided meditation, something just to create that mindfulness and that calm. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think so, especially, we get so bogged down in what's the right way to do it. And I think it's important to kind of go inward and listen to yourself. Like what feels right for you, you know? So it can be a multitude of things.
Right. Okay. I love that. So, another question I have for you is, well, maybe starting with a statement. So, we all lose our tempers sometimes. I definitely do as a parent. So, do you have any tips for parents who are looking to find like that Zen space when their kids are driving them crazy? Like what they can, like we can do as parents to kind of calm down?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I mean, for those listening, this is coming from a yoga teacher. Don't feel guilty. We all lose our patience. Like I have I will yell and then I'm like, oh God, I raised my voice. We all parenting is so hard and there's no time off from it, so it's like a 24/7 thing. So my first thing I'd say is don't beat yourself up about it because we're all going to do that. For me, what has helped me the most, because I'm, far from the perfect parent, I think for me, what's helped me is being conscious, like knowing my flaws, for lack of a better word, or knowing when I'm yelling or reacting in a way where I'm like, oh God, that was not the best way to handle that. I'm very big on repair, right? I'm very big on like, I messed up, or you saw daddy and I get in a big fight and I maybe was raising my voice and I shouldn't have. And you heard that, like not apologizing just to my husband, but sitting at dinner and be like, okay, everybody. So you heard me this morning. I definitely like lost my cool, lost my temper. I did not start the day off right. And like, I want to apologize to daddy. I want to apologize to both of you. And I think in doing that, you're showing your children like you're human, gonna make mistakes. They're gonna ultimately make mistakes in their life. And then they know, okay, I made a mistake and I can wholeheartedly apologize for that. So for me, when I mess up, lose my cool, yell, I mean, the list goes on, right? I'm really big on acknowledging it. I'm a human and I'm sorry and I'm working on this. For me, that's like, I'm working on it. And then being open. We're very open in my house and honest and, talking openly
Yeah.
about that.
I appreciate that vulnerability because, yeah, we all do it. I mean, maybe we don't want to admit it as much as it happened.
It's embarrassing for me to admit. I'm like, here I am teaching yoga to kids, but the reality is like I'm a human and I have young kids and sometimes at 8:25 in the morning when we're getting ready to go and you have one of them's now a tween and that's a whole other, attitude adjustment. So it's yeah, we're just human beings. I think it makes me too, I look at my parents now, right? And I'm like, they were just humans trying their best. Like we're all just trying our best.
Absolutely. And just like you said, like kind of normalizing it, like that humanity that we have, all we can do really from that is either, well, there's plenty of things we can do, but the most effective thing that we can do is repair and apologize and then model that for our kids, like what that looks like. It's okay to be human, it's okay to be normal. But if you're going to minimize it or ignore it, what is that going to teach your kids instead?
Right. I always tell children when we're working with them, like, we talk a lot about feelings in yoga, and I always say to kids, all the feelings, the anger, the jealousy, the anxiety, the nervousness, the fear, the sadness, none of those are bad feelings. They're just human, right? And as parents, like, we're all going to have these human reactions, especially when there is no break and you have, if you're working and have kids, or even if you're home all the time, that's in some ways even harder. We're going to lose it sometimes. So I think it's really important to give yourself grace. And in those moments when we do lose it, repair and speak honestly about it.
That's so beautiful, and I wholeheartedly agree with you there. So another quick question for you is, how can non-yoga enthusiasts, because I'm sure there's a few listening here right now, tie yoga into their daily lives as family? Because I know they know the benefits, but like, oh, do I really want to?
Everyone loves yoga. I know that. Although I've never tried. Like, that's totally fine. So for people that are like, I don't like yoga, I look at yoga as so much more than just the physical, right? And it's true. They say there's 8 limbs of yoga. So the physical practice is what in the West we're kind of most used to. Those are the asanas and the poses. That might not be for everyone, but really yoga is about living in the present moment.
Yep.
Right? So, like, I think for people that are like, I don't want to do yoga at the gym, or I don't want to go to yoga class, that's okay. You can still yoga. The real yoga happens off of your mat. So the Yoga Sutras, which is like the foundational text of yoga, the first sutra is yoga is now. Yoga is about being present. So I think if we can all put that into action and just live with a little bit more present moment awareness instead of worrying about the future and thinking about the past. And listen, as I say all this, I am not like, I have not perfected that by any means. I'm just conscious of it. So I can find when I'm slipping into my anxious state of worrying about whatever it is the next week, the next month, like bringing it back to the present. I think is such a great way to practice yoga, just being in the present moment. And for some people, you can ground yourself to be in the present moment by for me, it's going outdoors. It's being in nature. I find nature is like the ultimate balm for the soul. So like if I feel like I'm drifting into the future, worried about the past or whatever, getting outside is very helpful for me. So I would say being in the present and being outdoors.
Oh, I love that. And yeah, so as a therapist, I feel like sometimes people think like, oh, she's got it together. Her mental health is always great, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, there's a reason I'm drawn to mental health because I need all the help I can get, right?
Well, yes, it's funny because people always say, especially my parents, love you, mom and dad, if you're listening. But the truth is, like, those sometimes say kind of jokingly, they're like, oh, is that yoga working? And I'm like, that's why I do the yoga. It's not going to make my anxiety it's not going to make things go away. It's going to make me more conscious of them. It's going to make me more aware and have like a higher consciousness where I can say, ooh, I did just lash out at my children or speak to them in a way that I don't really like or don't want them to mimic, and I can repair it. So I think
it's like working with your weaknesses and knowing like, okay, so I actually didn't know for years that like I was an anxious person. I don't want to say what, like it is who I am, but I am more, often I feel more, tense or anxious about things and fearful by nature. It can kind of go to that a little bit more. And knowing that, like, what can I do to manage that? And so for me, that's like my non-negotiable. I talk about it with listeners all the time is I exercise every single morning. And as much as I can, I try to get outside daily. I try to move it different. Very alike. It's just those things that will help you manage those weaknesses that might come up. And parenting brings all sorts of weaknesses that we might.
Parenting opens them all up. Yeah.
It sure does. Absolutely. So thank you for sharing that. Another quick question I have for you is, again, as you know, kids have a lot of energy. So how does all that movement help them grow maybe emotionally? And how can we, as parents, support them in that way?
Yes. So kids do have a lot of energy. And I can tell you sometimes, if I'm pitching a school and they're like, well, we've tried yoga and the kids thought it was boring. I mean, I have heard that before. And I think what's unique about Yogi Beans is we are taking this ancient practice of yoga and we're translating it into a way that kids are going to enjoy and understand. So I think I always say, as I was saying before, there's 8 limbs of yoga, right? There's the breath work, present moment awareness, meditation. However, for children, I think the portal in the way to get them engaged is through the poses and the movement, because just like you said, they do have a lot of energy. And it's really, I don't, you, and I don't know if this is the best word, but it's unnatural to ask them to sit behind a desk for 8 hours in a day. Like that's not, that's you can't expect that, that they're gonna, and then especially after school, that's natural pent up energy that needs to be released. And I have a hard time sitting at a desk for prolonged periods of time. Um, so I think with children, understanding that this energy is natural, it's inherent in them. They do need to move. The poses are great because the poses are getting them in all these like crazy positions. Some of them they're like half, side bending, one hand on the floor, one leg in the air. And they're teaching them about focus, concentration, balance, strength, flexibility. So depending on the pose, you're focusing on one of those components, which is so great for a child. And then you could talk about how do you take this off of your mat and into your life. So if we're working, let's say on a tree pose, right? That's a balancing posture. Most people are familiar with tree. You're talking about, well, when you're in tree, you need to focus on one thing, right? Find something to look at. So you're focusing on that, right? When we're paying attention in school, we're focusing on one thing. We're focusing on the teacher, so taking the poses and then finding ways that they can practice the yoga off of the mat and in their everyday life.
Oh, yeah, that's a really great idea. I just recently did the tree pose in Cancun. I wish I was back there right now. It transported me, but I was thinking as you were saying that too. Yeah, adults too. Like we should not be. I don't want to say should not, but it is not natural for us to sit at a desk all day long either. So when I was doing what was it, the child's pose this morning, every time I do that pose, I'm like, oh, my body needed this so bad.
Yeah, yes. And it's so like when we can just, the mind body connection is so strong. And that's another thing I love about sharing this practice of yoga with children is making them aware how the mind and body are connected. And this is something for parents too, right? Oftentimes when a child is exhibiting anxiety, right? And they don't even know the name for it or they're worried, right? It's, I have a bellyache or my head hurts, right? And because they don't know, they're not gonna be like, I'm feeling anxious right now, because especially the younger they are. Maybe as they're a little bit older, but then being able to say, oh, I noticed that your belly always hurts every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Maybe that's because the belly knows that there's school tomorrow and that mind and body are connected. I used to have a yoga teacher that she would say, who is the pain in your neck, right? Like, where is that coming from? So that's another great skill that yoga teaches children, to notice the mind body connection.
Oh, I love that. We do something like that in some renditions of it in some trauma therapy, and it's like if the pain in your body had a voice, what it say? Or and also a lot of like where would just being able to recognize where that is in your body and then what it can teach you. And so often we're not aware of our body. And I thought that I was until I started doing my own trauma therapy. And I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that I had so much tension in my shoulders and my back that I had just completely like blocked out all the time. And now I recognize that before I might recognize my stress. You know what I mean?
Yes, well, I'm sure you know the book The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, and it's so true, right? It really is. We hold stuff in our body.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you answering some of these questions and kind of helping us as parents. Like, how do we incorporate this more into our life? And my last question for you is just like, how do you do it? Because we all love stories, right? Like, how do you balance being a yoga guru, a business owner, a parent, an author? How do you do it all? And how can we learn from you?
Yeah, I don't think I definitely don't do it all perfectly. I can tell you that. I think giving myself grace when I do mess up, which is often, repair is a big one, noticing. I think I'm someone that's pretty I've done a lot of self-study. In yoga we call it svadhyaya, right? I've done a lot of self-study, and I'm pretty aware of my strengths as well as my weaknesses. So think it's giving yourself grace, knowing that we're all a work in progress, right? We don't have to be a masterpiece just yet. Everyone's a work in progress. And carving out, like I said earlier, for me, having that morning time is really grounding. Having some sort of sacred time for yourself that No one is gonna, if the child wakes up and it's during your time, if you're doing it in the morning, then that would be a time I'd be like, those are your 10 minutes, put them on the TV or for 10 minutes, whatever it is you need to do, or the iPad, to carve out that time for yourself, because we all know if you don't fill the well, there's no water left to give. So
Right.
I think that's really important.
I love that ending part. If you don't fill the well, right, say it again.
Yeah, if you don't fill the well, there's no water left to give, right? If you're not filling yourself up, you don't have anything left to give to the children that are depending on you, to the family that's depending on you, to the job, right? So it's so important that we really, so much like you were saying, it's so much easier said than done. But it's really important that you find, whether it's the morning, whether it's the night, maybe for you it's the middle of the day, right? Whoever, some time that is sacred for you that you don't, that is your time. Whether it's 10 minutes to an hour, whatever it is, it's yours, and honor it.
That is so beautiful. Yeah, that same concept. You can't pour from an empty cup. Just like fueling your soul, your body in the ways, like making it a non-negotiable. And that's very much what we talk about too. So I love that you are reiterating that.
Yes, reiterating what you tell your listeners, 100%. It is just, it's key.
Yeah. So Lauren, tell us where we can find you and where we can get your book and all of those things.
Yes. So the book is right here, 108 Awesome Yoga Poses for Kids. It's great for children. It's great for those of you too that are just looking to learn how to kind of sprinkle yoga into whether your life, or if you're a teacher in the classroom, or, a lot of physical therapists, occupational therapists, incorporate this type of work. So you can get the book anywhere books are sold. And then you can find us on Instagram's probably our biggest platform. But we're on Facebook and TikTok, Yogi_Beans. Then we're going to have some, great online trainings coming up in 2025 for those of you that are interested in learning how to teach yoga to kids, or perhaps already have a children's yoga, are already teaching and looking to expand on that. So yogibeans.com, and on all the socials. On pretty much all the socials.
Yeah, there's probably a lot out there, but we're on a lot of them.
Yeah, we're on like the main ones. The ones you go to.
Well, thank you again. It was a delight having you on and just learning a little bit more about how we can take our family life to the next level with that mindfulness, with that movement. So thank you for your wisdom. It was wonderful having you on today.
Oh, it was so nice speaking with you. Thank you as well.
Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you. No matter what your house or your hair looks like, I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.